All right, let's kick this off with chapter 1, Lake Merritt. When I think back to childhood, there's definitely one place that captures a piece of my freedom. And I will also say the first time I had to process consequence. And that place is Lake Merritt. However, Lake Merritt wasn't just a body of water in Oakland. It was a vibe. And it was a spot where kids felt grown, where the rules bent just enough for you to believe you had control. And I remember on that day, it was me and my boy London. Now, we were under supervision because his dad and his uncle had taken us, so it was all good until we got curious. There was a bottle of wine, a big bottle of wine, and of course we did what a lot of kids do when they think no one is watching. We took a sip, and another, and before we knew it, we were spinning drunk off of something we didn't even understand. However, the irony is that we weren't sneaking it. It was actually given to us. Now, I won't tell you everything that happened after that, at least not yet. But let's just say I expected punishment and I braced myself for it. But what I got instead, though, was unexpected. It wasn't a lecture or a belt or braided switches. It was grace. And that shook me more than any discipline ever could. This chapter holds two deep themes for me. One is the power of friendship and early self-discovery, and how having someone by your side through, say, risk and fun and fear actually can shape how you see the world and also how you see yourself. The other thing was the quiet shock of grace, because sometimes when we expect anger, we prepare for the worst. But when understanding shows up, instead, that's a moment we end up finding ourselves growing. So writing this chapter brought back that golden feeling when life was simple and it was messy all at once. But it also reminded me that some of my earliest life lessons didn't come from punishment. They came from forgiveness I didn't even expect. Lake Merritt may have started as a fun day at the lake with London, but it ended as a moment I realized innocence and consequence often ride side by side. Of course, I want you to read it because there's so much more to it. And I want you to fill it in. When you're ready, I want you to come with me into chapter 2, where we talk about streetlights, where structure and love look a lot like protection. Let's talk about chapter 2, Streetlights. This chapter takes me into the center of childhood. The fun times, the laughter, and also the craziness. Do you remember or recall being a kid and having that one rule you never questioned? For me, it was this. When the streetlights come on, you better be in the house. That wasn't just a rule. It was law in my mother's world. And at the time, it felt like a buzzkill because I'd be outside with my friends wilding out, pretending to be WWF wrestlers. We'd be body slamming each other in the front yard, sweating and laughing like we had no care in the world. And then, click, that darn streetlight came on. That was it. No arguments, no extra 5 minutes. And if I wasn't already heading inside, I could feel her eyes on me from the front window of our second-story apartment. Then I hear her voice call me. Now, if you want to hear what she called me, you got to read the book. But what I didn't realize then was the street light wasn't just about curfew. It was about covering me, protecting me, because she knew what came out after dark wasn't always safe. And of course, when I got older, I understood that light wasn't just electric. It was spiritual. It was like her presence wrapped around me even when she couldn't be everywhere at once. Now, in this chapter, two things shine. The first was love through discipline, not the kind that feels punishing, but the kind that builds structure around you to keep you safe, even when you don't understand it. And then the second was brotherhood in action. That energy of being surrounded by your boys, feeling invincible and not realizing those memories will carry you when life gets heavy was amazing. Writing this chapter made me appreciate my mother on a different level. The way she loved out loud, the way she showed up through routine and repetition, and how even the smallest rule, like coming in before the streetlights, could be a legacy in disguise. Streetlights reminded me of how light is often a warning and also a welcome, both a boundary, but then also a blessing. And for this chapter, I invite the reader to embrace certain lessons. When you read it, sit with them. And when you're ready, we step into the shadows next. Chapter 4, Silent Shadows. And this one cuts really, really, really deep. So be prepared. All right. So we're here. Chapter 4, Silent Shadows. Let me warn you right now, this chapter isn't easy. It's not loud or dramatic, but it's heavy. In this chapter, I did something that took me over 35 years to do. I told a secret. One I never told my mom, never told my closest friends, just me and God. And the silence I held on to for decades, it shaped me. It taught me how to smile on the outside while holding pain on the inside. How to go through life pretending I was okay when part of me had been cracked long ago. Now, I won't tell you exactly what the secret is here because that's for the book, of course. But I'll tell you this. It's the kind of thing that changes how you see the world, how you trust, how you protect your own mind and heart, even as a child. This chapter wrestles with two deep, painful themes. One is childhood trauma that never got spoken. The kind that doesn't leave physical scars, but lives in your spirit. It molds your identity in a quiet, invisible way. The second was the power of speaking truth, even decades later. Because liberation doesn't always come from fixing the past. Sometimes it comes from finally telling the story. Writing this chapter, it hurt. It slowed me down. I had to step away from the pages more than once because I wasn't just writing, I was reliving. And what I found in that silence was the strength I didn't know I had. Silent Shadows is not for the faint at heart, but it's real. And if you've ever carried a secret, or even if you're carrying one now, this chapter will find you. I do hope it helps you feel seen, and I hope it reminds you that you are not what happened to you. So I encourage you to read it, sit with it, and then join me in the next chapter, chapter 6, Cover-Ups, because the shadows, they don't just hide things, they teach us how to survive. All right, family, so we've arrived at chapter 6, Cover-Ups. This one, it's not just a story about childhood mistakes. It's about family tensions, emotional battles, and how even the things we try to hide always find their way to the surface. In this chapter, I take you into a space that felt safe, my Aunt Cheryl's house. Her home was, I would say, a kind of sanctuary for me, and it was a place of refuge when life and my mother got overwhelming. Now, I would say not because my mother didn't love me, but because she was struggling struggling to provide, struggling to hold it all together while facing the silent shame of not being the parent she had hoped to be. See, I was her miracle, and I share that I was the child who came after 11 heartbreaking losses. So my mother often reminded me that God gave me you, but even miracles don't come with instructions. And the pain of the past miscarriages mixed, of course, with the pressure to raise me right, it created a storm inside my mom. Now, my aunt, she saw it. So she stepped in when the storm got too loud, but her presence created a ripple. There definitely was tension between the two women who loved me the most. Now, my mom, trying to assert her role, she held tight to the one line of defense. That's my son, and I had him. I don't think it was out of defiance, but I do think it was out of desperation, because one day while staying at my aunt's house, I got caught up in my own imagination. I was pretending to be a ninja, so I was sword fighting in her bedroom with a real knife, and then it happened. There was a deep gash in her oak dresser, a blemish that I could not ignore, so I panicked and I reached for the only solution I could think of as a kid, her makeup. I dabbed and I tried to blend it, trying to cover up the damage, and just like I learned to do in life. But cover-ups, they never really hold. So when she came home and walked in the room, my aunt saw it instantly. And just like that, I had a choice. I had to either tell the truth or to keep a lie going. And I decided to tell the truth. And even though that truth came with consequences, it also came with a lesson. So in this chapter, two things sit heavy. One is that family fracture beneath love. Sometimes the strongest bonds are tested by unspoken pain. This chapter shows how even deep love can come with friction, especially when survival is at stake. The second was the illusion of hiding. We can try to cover up the cracks, but the truth always finds its way through. So writing this chapter, it took me back to the moment I realized that damage, whether it's to furniture, to people, or to relationships, doesn't disappear just because we pretend it's not there. It has to be faced. It has to be named, and it also has to be healed. Cover-ups isn't about a mistake. It's about the moment we stop pretending. And that moment right there closes out part one of this 3-part journey. But don't go too far, because part 2 drops in just a couple hours, and trust me, it gets deeper. The stories become even more personal and the truths more unfiltered. So I want you to take a breath, sit with what you heard so far, and I'll see you soon for what's coming next. Thanks for watching.